Welcome back, everyone. We're going over this week's lesson. Week 16, Learn Python 2, While Loops. So our while loops looks like this. So it has three parts. Part one, looking at the validate function. And I call it validate function because it's define validate. So when we take a look at our validate function, we see here that define validate has 6 lines and that the 8th line is just to run it. So I try to make it easier for you. So as you can see, if I comment that out, nothing happens. That means that you need to either type out validate, and that's how you would do it. And or when leaving line 8 uncommented, it would run by itself. So this one is name a letter in hangman word. Literally name a letter in the answer, which is hangman space word. While guess not in answer, guess is a raw input. That means that we're asking the user right there to give us input. And when it's done, it'll say thank you. So I'll try it a couple times. So if I do A, I get thank you. And it says thank you because A is in hangman word. Let's be lazy. Uncomment that out. Run it again. So now it just runs validate. I'm going to put in a space. And that works because of this space right there. And let's run it again. But now let's intentionally give it a letter that's not there. And I put Z, right? And the original question has it as L, and it could be anything you want so that it's not in hangman word. So if I put in question mark, the number 2, anything like that, will keep it going. So that's the beauty of the while loop. While something is, some event or some condition is currently going on, it will stay that way until something breaks the loop. And in this case, something in hangman word. Next, we have guess winner function. So guess winner function looks complicated, and it's really not that bad. So let's take a look at it. I apologize for everything where each line kind of gets a little blended right there, like line 17 is actually including that comment. But let's go through it. So from future import print function, that we want to make use of Python 3 print functions. And then we're also importing the random module. So the random module is used here in line 6 with random.choice. And it's not rocket science. Random.choice is choose one randomly. So to run the function, I have line 20. So you need to have players in there. So it's looking for players. Like we are defining a variable in the arguments or the input into this function, players. So we are kind of making a list players that you're going to be able to choose from, right? And then we have these things that have -1, but a real reason why we're looking at this is this while loop. So something will happen repeatedly for as long as you haven't guessed the answer. And here from last time, we have for loops for P in players. Remember, for loops work best when they iterate in through something, through a list. So it makes sense for loop going through each thing in the list. So that's what's going on with this function. So let's run it. So let's do that. Guess which of these people won the lottery. Okay, Amy. Okay, so I got on the first try. You guessed it in one guesses. That makes sense because if I look at line 13, guess is equal to 1. So when making functions, you have to make sure, well, you don't ask someone until afterwards. So that means that guesses wasn't 0, right? So that just keep that in mind. So let's try this again. And we try this again because I don't want to retype all this, but you would literally type that over again. Okay, so let's try Amy again. Good, we didn't get on the first try. And then let's try, I don't know, Kathy. Nope, maybe I should have done Bill. Okay, so the worst case scenario happened. There were 4 people in the list. It took 4 guesses to get it. Okay, so let's look at some of the questions here, if they aren't so obvious, right? So we have questions on the left side and right side. So what's the purpose for each thing? What stops the loop? That's kind of self-explanatory. Line 16 and line 17, what is the guesses plus equal to? What's 17 doing? How is it keeping track of this guesses, right? Adding 2 guesses every time that you don't get it right. So every time that the while loop iterates, it adds to guesses. Hint, that's line 16. That type of stuff's going on. Anything else on that? So, and also when we talked about the worst case scenario for me guessing it in 4, this is very much like this. So if you had 100 people in that list, how many times could you do it? Is there a more effective way to guess strings or words than what I did? So, all right. Good luck. I'll talk about part 2 in a separate video.